Mark Johnson opens up the ridge with a victory. Hearn dominates at Albany-Saratoga. We take the white flag in remembrance of Steve Hulsizer. It's fast, it's for the fans, it's Race Pro Weekly. Welcome to another edition of Race Pro Weekly. I'm your host, Mike Warren. A new venture began at the Glen Ridge Motorsports Park as this past Sunday night, Mike Soul took over the reins as the promoter of the Speedway. The only question would be, who would take over and win on opening night? A lot of cars gracing the pit area at Glen Ridge Motorsports Park for their opening night run as they got started with their modified feature as Josh Hohenforst and the 3J of Mark Johnson would lead the field to the green. Early going in the event, Mark Johnson would be working to the inside of Hohenforst. Jamike Soul and Bobby Varon also on their way towards the front of the field trying to make something happen and get that elusive first win. Johnson would go to the inside of the 6H of Hohenforst, and then Kenny Tremont would go underneath him and follow. They'd make a little bit of contact, sending the Apollo rocket high in turn number 2, which would allow Jamike Soul to get by. Now the battle of the night was about to commence as Mark Johnson and the 115 of Kenny Tremont would put on a show. Tremont trying to go low on Johnson, but can't get by him, as Johnson would continue to hold the race lead, and they try it again as they go by Jeff Brownell, as Tremont did everything he could underneath to try to get by the 3J. Justin Bowler gets a little bit high and does a wall ride up in turn number 3 as he would spin the car, and that would force a caution. Tremont would do his best to get by Johnson on the outside lane as he would push for the race lead, but Mark Johnson just a little bit too strong off the corner. Keep an eye on that 22 of Jeremy Wilder, former champion here at the Speedway, as he go underneath Floyd Billington for position, but nobody was catching Mark Johnson as he'd pick up the first Glen Ridge Motorsports Park victory.
Definitely happy with it. It's a new Troyer car, and she was working good.
Did you feel any pressure from Tremont at all, or was the only time you saw him on the restart?
No, the only time I seen him was on the restart, and had to keep it right in the groove, and it was going to be tough for somebody to get around here.
Mark Johnson would pick up the victory, Kenny Tremont finishing in second, Bobby Varon finishing in third, Jeremy Wilder fourth, and the Apollo rocket, Josh Hohenforst, rounding out your top 5. One of the final tracks to open in the 2014 season would be the Fulton Speedway, with a lot of heavy hitters ready to see who could take the opening night feature event. Let's head out to Central New York to see who would pick up the victory. First feature event at the Fulton Speedway getting started as Justin Ayers and Matt Billings would lead the field to the green flag on what was supposed to be the preliminary night for the Super Dirt Car Series that weekend. Billings would make his way to the inside, trying to get by the 3 early. Some cars on the move and a little bit of a jingle towards the back of the field as Billy Van Inwagen goes for a spin off of turn number 2. Off the restart, some of the heavy hitters were on the move as Pat Ward, Billy Decker, and Super Matt Shepard on their way to the front, and they would entertain the crowd to a 3-wide battle for position that would end up being won by the 9H machine as he would try to go to work on Vinny Vitale here once he got by Billy Decker. Shepard would do everything he can to get to the inside of the 56 machine, but the 56 of Vitale just a little bit too strong off the corner as he would keep the position. However, towards the front of the field, nobody was stopping Justin Ayers as he picked up win number 1 at Fulton this season. Top 5 would be T-Bone, Justin Ayers picking up the win, Matt Billings finishing in second, Vinny Vitale third, Matt Shepard fourth, and Billy Decker rounding out the top 5. Other winners on the nights in the mod lights. In the open class, it would be Lowell Zier, and in the stock spec, Jeff Isabel Jr., and the winner in the IMCA modifieds was Chris Fleming. It's now time for this week's fan poll question. What do you think about NASCAR races on Saturday nights against local dirt tracks? Good or bad? Log on to the Race Pro Weekly Facebook or Twitter page to cast your answer, and it'll be read on next week's show. Last week's question was, what was your favorite food at the track? Here are some of the answers. Beer, says Kyle Hodge. Funnel cake coated with powdered sugar, clay, and a bit of rubber. Yum, from James Schink. Fulton and Brewerton's Pizza from Beth Schneider and Bridget Howell. Valley Fries with Vinegar from Melissa Maxon. London Broil Sandwich at Orange County Fair Speedway from Jim File. And Fingers and Fries at Merrittville, and the world-famous Flat Dogs at Ransomville from Gerard Mayer.
Sayers Auto Wrecking Incorporated is a towing service and an auto salvage yard. We offer 24-hour roadside assistance and damage-free towing. Our wreckers are radio dispatched for your convenience, and we're AAA approved for your peace of mind. On the auto salvage side, we pay top dollar for junk vehicles and sell a wide variety of used auto parts. We also buy scrap metals, including aluminum, copper, steel, and brass. You can learn more about all we do by calling Sayers Auto Wrecking today at 413-358-4374.
Taking a look at a few tidbits from this past weekend, we start with a few drivers at the Glen Ridge Motorsports Park and Bobby Varon mainly, who gave us an idea of just how important the starting position was.
It was absolutely imperative to have a good starting position, especially when it's a heads-up start. You know that the fast cars are starting up front. They got a good draw with a track that's coming apart a little bit, with spring conditions and stuff. It made for a little bit of one-lane racetrack. Don't get me wrong, I love Glen Ridge, and I think it's one of the raciest racetracks around. But tonight, she was a little bit narrow because she was breaking up.
We also caught up with the driver of the 115, Kenny Tremont, who was very happy with his first night back at the Glen Ridge Motorsports Park.
Actually went pretty good. We started in the second row, which was a good thing, and we ended up running pretty much second the whole night. But, we got some things we've got to work on, but overall we're pleased. Towards the very end, I started to skip there, so, naturally that didn't help anything, but we were able to finish second, so we're pleased with that.
On opening night at Albany-Saratoga, Brett Hearn was just about a car length from defeating Mark Johnson for the first race of the 2014 season. As race number 2 came up, would Hearn be able to find his way to victory lane? 35-lap modified feature event at Albany-Saratoga would have Ronnie Johnson leading the field to the green along with our friend from the North Country, Mike Parati, and they would put a show on early, but it would be Johnson with the advantage for the early stages of the contest. The 115 of Kenny Tremont will be on the move in the early going as he get by Neil Stratton and the 816 of Jeff Rockefeller. Caution up in turn number 1 and 2, pile of cars, Matt DePue, Brian Gleason in there as well. As off the restart, it would be the 2RJ of Ronnie Johnson taking hold of the lead once again. Car out of shape, it would be the 35 of Mike Parati up in turn number 3 and 4 as something went amiss on the Adirondack Auto Machine. Another car on the move, that is the 3D of Matty D. Matt DiLorenzo will go around the outside of the 115 of Kenny Tremont, but here comes the Jersey Jet. Brett Hearn also making his way in there. He go by the 816 of Jeff Rockefeller for position as he would make his way towards the front and then take the number 2 spot away from the 21J of Jeff Trombley. Hearn would then try to go to work on the number 2 of Ronnie Johnson as Alex Bell would impede his progress for the time being. These two would put on a battle at the front of the field as the caution would come out for Hector Stratton and Jamike Soul, stopping the battle for the time being. Off the restart, Hearn would get the advantage. He tried to go to the outside lane, but it would be Johnson holding him off for the time being. Now the 20 of Hearn would try to make a move to the outside lane. He'd stick it up and get a little bit more bite, and he would take the race lead away. Young Tyler Dipple also in the field at Albany-Saratoga, raced his way up to a top 5, but there was nobody stopping the Jersey Jet as he got win number 1 at Albany-Saratoga.
I got a really good car this year, man. This thing's handling really well. I can move around the track, do some things I haven't been able to do in a while, so pretty excited.
You know, you got a real knack for starting midway through the pack here and getting to the front quickly. You did it again tonight. This car was like a rocket.
I don't think we have much of a choice. We either got to figure it out, because anytime that you can run consistent weeks, it's going to start your 15th every week, you know. So if you can't do it for 15th, you're not going to be able to do it.
Brett Hearn would pick up his first win of the season at the Great Race Place. Kenny Tremont would come home second, Ronnie Johnson third, Jeff Trombley fourth, and young gun Tyler Dipple would round out the top 5. Mother Nature ruined the racing on Saturday night at 3 of our tracks, which were Lebanon Valley, the Fonda Speedway, and also the Orange County Fair Speedway. All 3 of these tracks look to be back in action this coming weekend with a big show, including the Lebanon Valley Speedway opening up with the small blocks for the first time this season. Nothing like a little in-car camera action, especially when it's crazy. Kenny Martin behind the wheel. We get started with this 25-lap Pro Stock feature event at Albany-Saratoga with the 14 of Kim Duell and the 21S of Dave DiPaolo leading the field to the green. This one got started with a little action a little early as Jeff Washburn would spin, collecting Walt Brownell and Brandon Amy. Bernie Companion having a little bit of damage on the right side of the car, and Walt Brownell, well, he was missing a hood, to say the least. Off of the restart, it would be the 97 of Dan Older trying to make some moves. The 93 of Kenny Martin and the 7 of Rob Yetman were there as well, as Martin would go underneath the 97 of Older in the early going, as it seemed like that may be the line he'd want to use, as he would also use it to get by the 181 of Danny Wood as well. As they'd make their way through the field once again, now Martin would try to go to the inside of the 14 of Kim Duell to try to take the position. Duell wouldn't let him get there, however, so Kenny Martin says, I'll try the outside. So he goes to the top side of him, and he would get it no problem. He'd take the number 2 spot away, and now a 3-car battle would ensue at the front of the field as the 93 of Kenny Martin would go to the outside of Dave DiPaolo. Martin would get the race lead away, but Rob Yetman was there as well as they'd go 3 wide into turn number 3 and 4 with all 3 fighting for the spot, but Rob Yetman would take the number 2 spot away and get by the 21. Both cars would put on a show as Rob Yetman tried everything he could to the inside, but the 93 of Martin was just too strong on exit to the corner as they came to the checkered flag. It would be Kenny Martin picking up the win, his first of 2014.
Well, I could feel him. He was tagging me on the left rear. I kept seeing him lap after lap. I know he's a fast car. Well respected, good driver. And I gave all I had, and that was all I had. And it was just enough, I think, tonight to hold him off. It was a fun race, real fun race for a change.
Kenny Martin would pick up the win. Rob Yetman was close, but would end up in second. Fast Eddie Thompson third, Byron Westcott fourth, and Nick Stone would round out your top 5.
All right, Connor, what is your favorite sport other than racing?
My favorite sport other than racing is hockey because I love the physical ability of it, and it keeps me in shape to come into the racing season and be able to wheel a car for 30 laps.
Are you growing your playoff beard right now? Is that what you got going on?
No, actually, last year I grew it out at the end of the season, and it gave me good luck. And I started doing it before the first race at Middletown, and we got a second, and then we got a second last night in Malta, so I'm just going to keep it going.
So superstition kind of thing.
Oh yeah, that's all about it.
Now, what song gets you pumped? What do you listen to before you come to a race, or what might get you pumped before you go out there for hot laps?
The last couple times I'm listening to Bottoms Up by, I think, Brantley Gilbert, so I listen to a lot of country, so that's pretty much all I listen to.
Now, do you prefer day racing or night racing?
For sportsmen, I prefer day racing because that'll make it able for 2 lanes for top and bottom. At nighttime, there's usually, it depends on when we start and how hot it is and the temperature. There's usually only 1 lane at night because it's so tacky, so I originally like day racing.
Now, because you're so young, I was going to say if you could go back in time and team up with someone, if you could go back in time, or if it's somebody in present time, if you could team up with one person, one team, who would that be?
Well, last year we started with Ronnie Johnson because he was helping us out, and that's actually who this car is from. It's actually Jumpin' Jacks and Ronnie's. That's who they both started out. But they started out when we first started out, and they did everything they possibly could for me. But Ronnie and his whole crew were the nicest people I could ever meet. They did everything I wanted, everything I could ever ask for, and so that'd probably be the team I'd stick with.
It's now time for this week's Driver Spotlight with sportsman competitor Mark Mortensen.
Race Pro Weekly is brought to you by Racing Electronics, your #1 source for professional race communications worldwide. Rainmaker Productions, co-promoters of the Lou Lazzaro Memorial Race at Fonda Speedway on May 24th. Sheldon Oil Services, recycling for your future. And by Pilot Graphic Designs, signs, banners, decals, and so much more. Give Dan a call today at 315-539-3484.
It's not something you choose, it chooses you. It's something you're born with. It's a passion that consumes you. Being an outlaw is not for the weak. Being an outlaw is in your blood. Only an outlaw can survive a grueling 90-race schedule. 40,000 miles on the road, going from track to track. It's not about being posse or all-star. It's about being an outlaw. Only the best can call themselves outlaws. I'm Darren Pittman, World of Outlaws STP sprint car driver, and I'm an outlaw.
There's only one place in the Capital Region for you to get the full racing action. Stop down at the Bobco video booth at the track or call 518-399-0937. Bobco Racing Video, the next best thing to being there. For the first 3 races of the season, nothing was able to stop Billy Pauch from getting to victory lane at New Egypt. Would that be the case in race number 4? Cars getting a little power sliding action there at New Egypt in the pre-race practice session as we would get on with the 30-lap modified feature event as the cars would barrel down the front straightaway in the early going. A few cars on the move. Gary Butler in the 68, the 32 of Danny Book as well. And now a battle for the lead as John Stengel up there with Tim Apgar fighting for position as Stengel will go to the inside and take the race lead. Car on the move, no shocker here. The number 1 of Billy Pauch as he would muscle Book in the inside of turn number 1 and 2 and then take the number 3 spot to go right behind the 68 of Butler. Cars would continue to ride as there Stengel gets caught up with Butler and goes into turn number 4, collecting Neil Williams and Darren McCauley as well, which would bring up the caution. And then on the restart, Billy Pauch would go to the outside where he would take the race lead away from Butler. A little bit of a jingle as Pauch came to the line this time as Jimmy Blewett gets caught up along with Stengel. Pauch would be the one to cross the line first, but would fail post-race inspection, giving the win to Ryan Godown. The Ringo's Rocket Ryan Godown picks up win number 1 at New Egypt. Willie Osmond would finish in second, Sammy Piazza third, Gary Butler fourth, and Darren McCauley would round out the top 5. Other winners on the night, Bobby Devo would be the winner in the sprint. Rookie Sportsman went to Brandon Kloss, and the crate modifieds were postponed on lap number 9 and will be run at a later date. Sportsman feature event at the Glen Ridge Motorsports Park going 25 laps the distance with Rocky Warner taking the early race lead over the 12 of Shea Montgomery. Some cars on the move early. Keep an eye on Derek McGrew, the 14 of Brett Wright, and the 7 of Timothy Davis as well as they would fight through the field early. Couple cars as well. Brian Pesolano making his way through as a caution will come out early for the 12K of Rick Lamont, which would also send the 79 of Rocky Warner pit side, giving up the lead. Off the restart, Shea Montgomery would have the advantage as he tried to outrun Derek McGrew up into turn number 1 and 2, but Matt Hitchcock would get out of shape, and that would collect a number of cars as Connor Cleveland, Ricky Davis, Curtis Hohenscheld up there as well. 23 of McGrew going to barrel to the inside of Shea Montgomery to take the race lead. The 7 of Davis would follow right behind him, and so would the 14 of Wright. As Rocky Warner trying to come back through the field, as Curtis Hohenscheld gets a little out of shape. And hey, there's Lottie Hoyenga, one of my favorite sports competitors as well. 23 of McGrew going to barrel to the outside as Brett Wright and Davis still trying to run him down as Wright would take the number 2 spot away from Davis as they'd run down the back straightaway. Cars on the move once again now as Wright would take a look-see to the outside of the 23 machine but get caught in lap traffic. That allows Davis to get underneath Wright for the number 2 spot, and then Davis would go to work and get underneath the 23 of McGrew for the race lead as the caution would come out, however, for the 21C of Brian Calabrese. Off the restart, it would be Brett Wright taking the advantage as Rocky Warner goes for a move on the inside and Derek McGrew does a 360 but keeps it rolling. As they come off of turn number 3 and 4 for the final time, Brett Wright will take the win in the Sportsman feature event. Top 5 would be Brett Wright picking up the win, Tim Davis finishing in second, Rocky Warner third, Mark Mortensen fourth, and Shea Montgomery rounding out your top 5. Other winners on the night in the Pro Stocks, it would be Nick Stone, and in the Lightning Sprints, Justin Phillips would cross the line first. 25-lap feature event at the Albany-Saratoga Speedway would have Joey Scarborough and Jack Gentile leading the field up into turn number 1 and 2 as they got things going. Last week's winner in the J&D Waste Equipment, car number 14, Brett Wright, would get a couple cars on his way to the front. And what a battle at the front of the field we would have in this one as Joey Scarborough and Jack Gentile would run side by side with only a Nerf bar ahead many times during the event. Brett Wright would get by the 62 of Mike Ostrander, then Ostrander would make contact with the 14 of Wright, which would also collect the 23 of Derek McGrew, as they would all come back out onto the racetrack and continue at the rear of the field. Off of the restart, Jack Gentile would regain the lead, having the momentum on the outside lane, but Joey Scarborough would continue to battle back as they stayed side by side through many laps in this event. Scarborough would go to the inside and get the bite he needed as he take the lead outright down the back straightaway. And now the car on the move as well was that 173 machine of Cody Blue and Timothy Davis having another great run. Blue would get under Gentile for the number spot on the restart, give one last shot to the outside for the race lead, but he couldn't make it stick as Joey Scarborough would pick up the win in the Sportsman feature event.
It feels really good to win in a field that has a lot of competition in it. Even starting up front, people say, oh, it's position and starting position, but I had Jack Gentile, who has had a lot of experience racing a long time, he's racing on the top for me, and took the lead at one point, so I had to race really hard to get the lead back, and I did that, and then stayed on the bottom to hold out the win.
Joey Scarborough would pick up the win in the Sportsman feature event. Cody Blue would finish in second, Jeremy Pitts third, Jack Gentile fourth, and Robert Bublak Jr. will round out your top 5. Other winners on the night in the Limited Sportsman, it would be Colin Bocus, and your winner in the Street Stocks would be Bill Dupree. It's now time to take a look at our weekend battles. At Woodhull, it was Bob Davis picking up the win, Eric Fisher finishing in second, Alan Rudalovich third, Brady Foltz fourth, and Kenny Peoples Jr. rounding out the top 5. At Sharon Speedway, it was Rex King Jr. picking up the win, Jeremiah Shingledecker finishing in second, Eric Rudolph third, Jim Weller fourth, and Brian Swartzlander finishing fifth. At Bridgeport, Rick Laubach picked up the win, Ryan Watt would finish in second, Wade Hendrickson third, Jimmy Horton fourth, and Richie Pratt finishing fifth. At Grandview, it was the handler Doug Madmiller picking up the victory, Don Norris finishing in second, Mimi DeSantis third, Dwayne Howard fourth, and Brad Arnold finishing in the top 5. Mahoning Valley, Jack Ely would be your winner on the night, as Kevin Graver would finish in second, Ricky Yetter would finish in third, Mike Stefflet fourth, and Alea Geisler would finish in fifth. At Mercer Raceway Park, Eric Gabney would pick up the victory, Kyle Fink would finish in second, Frank Guidis would finish in third, Sean Flieger fourth, and Rich Whitney would finish in fifth. And at the opener at the Utica Rome Speedway, it would be Mike Mahaney picking up the victory, Stuart Friesen finishing in second, Matt Shepard third, Jimmy Phelps fourth, and the Franklin Flyer, Billy Decker, rounding out your top 5. We'd like to take this time to remember Walt Bedell, a 2012 NISCA Hall of Fame inductee, and he was a man that everybody knew, that was always around the track, always happy to be at the races, and always there supporting all the drivers on a weekly basis. Thoughts and prayers go out to the Bedell family from everyone here at Race Pro Weekly. The Choices 301 program takes a multifaceted approach aimed at educating the public about the realities and dangers of what can happen when bad decisions are made inside a motor vehicle. Don't hesitate to designate. Performance. Quality. Service. That's DMC Racing Products. Hundreds of name brand parts. Competitive prices. That's DMC. DMC Racing Products. Race to win. If you are a tracker series that would like to be highlighted on Race Pro Weekly, email us at show@raceproweekly.com. Earlier this week, we lost another family member in the racing community as modified competitor Steve Hulsizer passed away. We take a look back for our White Flag segment at an interview that Matt Knowles did back at Glen Ridge last fall for his last victory.
Pretty good run in your heat race. Before the feature, what changes did you make, or how did you anticipate the track to react as the race went on?
Well, in the first feature, we were like awfully tight, so we loosened the car by real lot for the second heat race, and it was real loose. So we just tightened it up a little bit, you know. We actually borrowed the right rear tire that Pat Ward won the first feature with, because he was putting a new one on.
Yeah.
And we didn't have a hard enough tire, so he was nice enough to get us a tire and borrowed a set of gears from him, and just a Hail Mary at it, you know, made us some small changes with a different tire combination, and it was actually pretty good.
You started fourth. You seemed to hang around fifth or sixth for about the first 20 laps. Like you were trying the outside and just couldn't really get going. When did you feel the car start to come in, and did you think you had a shot once it did start to work?
I was pretty sure I had a shot at it, and I didn't realize the outside was that good until we were under caution. And I looked about a lane and a half above where I was running. I said, I think there's some bite up there. And I just had to hike my skirt up and send it in on it.
Yep.
And it stuck, and it was probably what got me. Actually, we were really good in 1 and 2 in the middle. If I could slow it down enough to roll the middle, we were good there and carry enough momentum to get around them on this end. You know, and Mike Mahaney did a heck of a job, gave me a ton of room. You know, it was pretty handy when you're running the outside.
How much did you enjoy that side-by-side battle, working lap after lap, just to inch ahead a little bit by little bit?
You know, there was I was doing the same thing with Kenny Tremont. You know, race side by side, and they just race clean. You know, and that's the best kind of racing you can get.
That's all for this week's show. For the latest news, results, and photos, check out Race Pro Weekly online, www.raceproweekly.com, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. So for myself, Matt Knowles, Fast Eddie, Scott Morlock, Dave Del Sandro, and everyone that helps put Race Pro Weekly together, thank you for watching this week's episode, and we'll see you next time.